Most people will live their whole lives wearing a mask and call it identity. They silence their truth to fit in, shrink their dreams to feel safe, and then wonder why nothing feels real anymore. It's not that they're lost. It's that they've never dared to meet the version of themselves buried beneath the noise. The scary part? That version is still alive, waiting. But every time you avoid discomfort, you bury it deeper. You scroll past your potential. You laugh when you want to speak. You settle when you were meant to build. Marcus Aurelius once said, "A man's worth is no greater than his ambitions." So ask yourself, what have you been settling for? Because the gap between the life you tolerate and the one you're meant for is just one decision wide. If something in you knows that's true, if it hits somewhere deeper than words, then you're exactly where you need to be. And if you value these wake-up calls, if this kind of message matters to you, there's a small free way to help. Hit that subscribe button. Let's get into it. There's a moment that hits all of us, quiet, unexpected, where we realize we've been living in between, not fully in, not fully out. One foot chasing potential, the other stuck in comfort. And it creeps in slowly, disguised as balance, as being practical or polite. But here's the uncomfortable truth. You can't do both. You can't hold on to safety and expect to fly. You can't numb your discomfort and still expect clarity. Life doesn't reward half measures. It's a game of trade-offs, whether you're ready to admit it or not. Every decision you make is a door you walk through, and by walking through one, you're closing another. That's not negativity, that's reality. Saying yes to comfort means you're saying no to growth. Saying yes to distraction means you're actively rejecting focus. Scrolling endlessly isn't harmless. It's a choice to postpone your own progress. You don't get to become your best self and still cling to the habits that are keeping you average. As Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And self-mastery doesn't come from convenience, it comes from conviction. Carl Jung once wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." Think about that. We'll watch 10 hours of other people's lives before we sit with our own. We'll overcommit to people and plans that don't matter just to avoid the silence that might tell us something we're not ready to hear. But hiding doesn't make the truth disappear. It just makes the pain of not growing louder over time. Aristotle believed that excellence is not an act, but a habit, something we become by consistently choosing what aligns with our values. That means we don't just wake up one day in alignment. We build it, choice by choice. And every time we choose ease over effort, noise over stillness, comfort over courage, we're making a very real decision. We are not floating. We're drifting in a direction, whether we realize it or not. So here's the hard line. You can either be who they want you to be, or you can be who you truly are, but you can't be both. You can't chase validation and authenticity at the same time. One will always betray the other. And if you're constantly contorting yourself to fit someone else's mold, you're slowly forgetting the shape of your own soul. Plato warned that the price of apathy toward public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. But let's make that personal. The price of apathy toward your own affairs is to be ruled by distraction, by fear, by everything external. And that's not just unfortunate, it's tragic, because the alternative is right in front of you. Conscious, deliberate choice. Choosing presence over avoidance. Choosing the hard thing that builds you instead of the easy thing that drains you. So, what's it gonna be? You don't have to answer right now, but know this. From this moment forward, every single decision, what you say yes to, what you ignore, what you tolerate, is either building the person you want to become or pulling you further away from them. There is no neutral, and the people who thrive in this life the ones who lead with clarity, who sleep with peace. They made the hard choice to stop living in the in-between. Like Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." So if your mind is filled with noise, avoidance, and indecision, your life will reflect exactly that. But if your thoughts are rooted in purpose, direction, and courage, even the smallest actions will start to feel like momentum. The world isn't asking you to be perfect, it's just asking you to choose. There's this lie we tell ourselves, subtle, convincing, and incredibly dangerous. It whispers, "Wait until you're ready," as if one day you'll wake up fearless, fully equipped, and entirely sure of yourself. But that day doesn't come. Not the way you think it will, because readiness isn't a feeling, it's a choice. And most of the time, you'll have to leap before it ever shows up. People confuse courage with confidence, but they're nothing alike. Confidence is the reward you earn after you've done the hard thing. Courage? Courage is what shows up in the silence, when your voice shakes and your heart races and your brain screams, "Don't do it." It's saying yes anyway. It's walking toward the fear, not because you're fearless, but because you've decided not to let fear decide for you anymore. Carl Jung said, "What you resist persists." And he was right. The more you avoid the thing, the louder it becomes. The fear doesn't shrink, it just burrows in deeper. So that dream you keep putting off, that conversation you've been dodging, that version of yourself you're afraid to meet, every delay gives the fear more room to grow. We don't grow when we're comfortable, and we certainly don't grow when we're certain. Plato once wrote that courage is knowing what not to fear. But in today's world, we fear everything that isn't guaranteed. We fear failure, judgment, rejection, so we wait. We tell ourselves we need more time, more money, more training, more clarity. But deep down, we know the truth. What we really need is less fear and more movement. Think about that girl standing on stage, hands trembling, voice cracking, reading her poetry for the first time. You think she was ready? No way. But she did it anyway, not because she felt bulletproof, but because something inside her finally said, "Enough. Enough hiding. Enough waiting. Enough letting fear dictate the script." That's courage. Socrates once said, "To move the world, first move yourself." But most of us are waiting for the world to give us a sign, to roll out a red carpet and say, "Now you may begin." That's not how life works. If anything, life waits for you to move first, to take the uncomfortable step, to raise your hand, to speak your truth. And once you do, that's when the shift begins. Look, stumbling is part of the process. There's no clean start, no perfect launch. You'll probably screw it up. You'll look awkward. You'll doubt yourself. But you'll also learn. You'll build muscle, the kind that only comes from action. The Stoics taught that virtue is action, not thoughts, not feelings, action. Seneca said, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." So ask yourself, what have you been putting off, not because you can't, but because you think you're not ready? And what if readiness isn't even real? What if it's just fear wearing a mask that looks like logic? The truth is, everyone you admire, the ones who made something meaningful, who stepped into their purpose, they started scared too. The difference is, they didn't wait. They didn't ask for certainty. They just moved. So maybe today's the day you do the same. No dramatic transformation, no perfect moment. Just one shaky step forward, and that's all it ever takes to begin. There's something strangely seductive about being normal. It offers safety, predictability, the illusion that you're doing things the right way simply because others are doing them too. But here's the problem. Normal doesn't get you anywhere you actually want to be. It keeps you in a loop, quiet, familiar, and painfully forgettable. You weren't built for that. Deep down, you know it. That quiet discomfort you feel when you're stuck in routine, when your goals become wallpaper in your mind. That's your soul pushing against the weight of mediocrity. Let's be clear, normal is easy. It's showing up late and leaving early. It's waiting for the weekend to feel alive. It's numbing out on your phone while your purpose collects dust. It's telling yourself one day when you know damn well the clock is ticking. Epictetus said, "How long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself?" That question should haunt you a little because you know the truth. You've been giving normal effort and hoping for exceptional results. And that equation has never worked. Aristotle believed that excellence is never an accident. It's a result of deliberate choices, elevated intention, and relentless action. That means you don't stumble into greatness. You choose it. You carve it out of the hours you'd rather waste. You build it by doing the things most people avoid. The hard, unsexy things that create depth and discipline. Let's talk psychology for a second. Carl Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But how can you become that person if you keep mirroring the habits, fears, and distractions of everyone around you? We think we're making safe decisions, but really, we're just outsourcing our identity to the crowd. And the crowd is exhausted, distracted, unfulfilled. That's the normal you're measuring yourself against. Look around. Normal is burnt out. Normal is overwhelmed. Normal is saying, 'I'm fine,' while slowly eroding inside. So why are we still aiming for it? Why are we still afraid to be different when difference is exactly what progress requires? Socrates said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." If you haven't paused lately to ask yourself if the life you're building actually reflects who you want to be, you're not living, you're drifting. Drifting with the current of culture, drifting toward comfort, drifting toward average. And I'll be honest, average is overcrowded, everyone's there. That's why it feels safe. But it's not safe. It's just familiar. There's a difference. Now, I'm not saying go full throttle in every area of life. Burnout isn't a badge of honor. What I'm saying is, choose your 5% zones. The parts of your life that matter so deeply to you, you refuse to be average in them. That might be your health, your craft, your relationships, your mindset. Whatever they are, go all in, not recklessly, but relentlessly. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The world will try to distract you with surface-level rewards, likes, applause, fast dopamine. But your peace, your power, your potential, it's buried beneath the layers of distraction that normal encourages." So ask yourself honestly, where have you settled for normal? And where are you finally ready to rise above it? Because if you want an uncommon life, you need to start making uncommon choices. One decision at a time, not someday, today. It's strange, isn't it? How we search the world for things we already carry, like we're on this constant mission to become something, when most of the time, what we really need is to return. Return to the parts of ourselves we've buried under noise, comparison, and trying to live someone else's idea of success. That pressure to find yourself, it's everywhere. But here's a radical idea. Maybe you're not lost. Maybe you're just distracted. Think about it. How often do you truly sit with yourself? No phone, no music, no filters. Just you. Most people avoid that silence like it's dangerous. But that silence, that's home. That's where your instincts live. That's where clarity starts. Carl Jung once said, "He who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakes." And it's true. We spend so much of life chasing more, hoping that if we just do enough, buy enough, please enough people, we'll finally feel whole. But wholeness was never out there to begin with. The Stoics knew this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." Your power isn't in becoming something new. It's in remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. And if that hits a nerve, good. It means there's still a piece of you waiting to be reclaimed. The problem is, we've gotten really good at pretending. We perform, we adapt, we mirror what we think will be accepted. But performance has a cost. The more time you spend playing a role, the harder it becomes to recognize your own voice underneath the noise. And eventually, you wake up and wonder why everything feels dull, disconnected, even when your life looks successful from the outside. Plato taught that knowledge is a form of recollection, that truth isn't something poured into us, but something drawn out. That's what self-awareness is. It's not about constructing a brand new version of yourself. It's about peeling away the layers until you meet the part that was always there, the unfiltered you, the one that doesn't care about likes or optics or algorithms, the one who just is. And that part of you? It already knows. It knows what you love, what makes you come alive, what makes you feel out of alignment. But we mute it constantly, every time we compromise what we believe just to keep the peace. Every time we say yes when everything in us is screaming no. Every time we chase what looks good instead of what feels right. Socrates said, "To know thyself is the beginning of wisdom." And yet, most of us spend more time studying strangers online than we do exploring our own hearts. That's the paradox. We want meaning, but we're looking everywhere except within. We think the answer is in the next job, the next relationship, the next version of ourselves. But the next version? It's not ahead. It's buried under layers of avoidance. So what would happen if you just stopped, not gave up, just paused? What if you turned down the volume of the world and finally listened to yourself? You'd remember that you already have the wisdom, the instincts, the clarity. You've just forgotten how to trust it. The Stoics believed in self-sufficiency, not in a cold, isolated way, but in a deeply empowering one. You don't need permission to be who you are. You don't need another course or another voice telling you what to do. You already know, and once you start acting from that place, life feels less like a performance and more like a return. You don't need to become anything to be worthy. You just need to remember what's already true. There's something powerful about realizing that no one's coming to finish the story for you. That uncomfortable, liberating truth that this, your life, is yours to shape, line by line, choice by choice. You're not just a character in someone else's narrative. You're the author, the narrator, the artist. And whether you like it or not, the brush has always been in your hand. We forget that though. Life piles on. Mistakes, disappointments, regrets. They start to feel like chains, like evidence that we're stuck or broken. But that's just another illusion. The Stoics taught us not to mourn the past, but to use it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That means the thing you think is holding you back. It's the raw material for your next move. Your missteps aren't anchors. They're the texture in the painting you're about to create. Carl Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." And that shift in perspective, that's everything. You can keep staring at your past like it's a prison, or you can pick up the brush and paint over it. not to erase it, but to transform it. Every painful chapter, every wrong turn, every scar, they're not dead weight, they're depth. They're the shades and shadows that make the masterpiece real. And don't get caught up in the pressure to have the whole picture figured out. That's another trap. You're not supposed to see the final version yet. You're supposed to start, even if your hand is shaking, even if the first few strokes look messy or uncertain. No one creates anything beautiful without first being willing to look awkward. Even Aristotle believed that excellence is formed through habit. Not grand moments, but small, consistent choices. So the question isn't, will it be perfect? It's, will you begin? Plato reminded us that the beginning is the most important part of the work. And yet that's the part we fear the most. We stall, we overthink, we wait for the right timing, the right tools, the perfect mood. But you don't need any of that. What you need is movement, the act of showing up despite the uncertainty. That's what courage looks like. Not loud and fearless, but quiet and persistent. Socrates asked people to know themselves, but also to act on that knowing. What's the use of insight if it never becomes momentum? What's the use of learning if you don't use it to create something new? The past will not rewrite itself, but you can write something new today, and it won't be clean. It won't always make sense right away, but it'll be yours. That's what makes it powerful. That's what makes it worth it. So don't wait for clarity. Don't wait until you feel ready. Pick up the brush. Use the chaos. Use the heartbreak. Use the lessons. The canvas is already in front of you, whether you acknowledge it or not. And every second you hesitate is a second wasted in someone else's story. There's a moment, quiet, almost invisible, where everything shifts, not because the world suddenly becomes easier or more forgiving, but because you stop waiting. You stop handing out your power like coupons, hoping someone else will cash them in and validate your worth. You stop asking for signs, for green lights, for the universe to give you proof that you're allowed to begin. And instead, you decide, not because you're fearless, but because the cost of staying stuck finally outweighs the fear of moving forward. That's the moment where things begin to change, not outside of you, but inside, where you no longer look at your reflection and see just the sum of your failures and delays, but the start of something rare, something real. Because here's the uncomfortable truth: your life doesn't change when you want it to. It changes when you choose it to. When you draw a line in the sand and say, no more shrinking, no more performing, no more pretending this is all there is. You don't need permission, not from them, not from your past, not from some future version of yourself that has everything figured out. You've already been chosen by the breath in your lungs and the fire in your chest. And the difference between who you are now and who you're meant to be, it's not talent. It's not luck, it's a single decision. To show up fully, to drop the mask, to stop living on autopilot. And yeah, it's terrifying. Change always is. But it's also sacred, because when you decide to leave normal behind, when you stop trying to fit into boxes that were never built for you, you give the world something it's been missing. You, unfiltered. Aristotle said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. But what he didn't say is that it also takes courage to act on what you find. Because the world is loud, it rewards conformity, it claps for curated versions of ourselves. But that applause, it's never worth the silence that follows when you're alone and wondering what happened to the person you used to be. So let this be the moment. The one you look back on, not because it was loud or dramatic, but because it was honest. The moment you felt the weight of your untapped potential and finally said, enough. Think about it. There are people you haven't met yet who need you to become who you're meant to be. There's a kid who'll find hope in your story, a friend who'll need your strength, a stranger who's drowning and won't know how to breathe again until they hear your truth. And maybe most of all, there's a future version of you, 5 years older, wiser, stronger, who's going to be so damn proud you took this step. Don't rob the world of that person. Because life doesn't hand you meaning like a prize. You make it. You carve it out from discomfort and doubt and the refusal to quit. One bold, messy, beautiful decision at a time. And if your voice shakes when you speak your truth, good. That means it matters. That means it's real. So stand up, show up, speak up, not someday, today. Thanks for being a part of Stoic Journal. If this spoke to something inside you, stick around. There's more waiting for you. You'll find your next step in the videos on the screen. And until next time, take care of that fire in your chest. See you soon.